Our guest this episode is David Griffiths, CEO of Content Creating Academy. He empowers aspiring and established influencers, speakers, and trainers to connect and engage with their ideal audience on social media. With over 15 years of experience, David leverages his own success as an influencer with over 1 million followers on TikTok, 223,000 followers on Instagram, and over 54,000 on Facebook to share proven strategies. So here to discuss about content creation and social media strategy, please welcome to the podcast, David Griffiths. Welcome to the Engaging Personalities Podcast. I'm Anders Belanger, founder and CEO of Engagify, where we're on a mission to rehumanize business through engagement. We believe that we can all be more successful if we can command attention and deepen connection. So stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest on a future episode. So let's get ready to engage.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. We were having a laugh already before we started, so I kind of feel nice and comfortable. David, I see a piano there, and for the people watching, it's apparent. I do know there's a musical background, but let's just kind of connect on that just to begin. I know you're a professor of voice, is that right? And do you want to just kind of speak to that, use your voice to speak to that before we start?
Sure. I am very passionate about music. I have a master's in vocal performance from Peabody Conservatory, and I've been blessed to be a recording artist as well. I love singing, and it was at a point where I was not able to sing because of long COVID that I fully transitioned into being a full-time content creator coach. So I have a great deal of passion for both.
That's interesting. So you learned the skills as a musician, and then being able to your pivot, right? That was the drinking game, right? Back at COVID, everyone who said pivot, you have to take a drink because everyone was talking about pivoting, right? And that was your pivot. And so, as you amassed a following, you were doing it based on your musical accomplishments, I guess, originally. Is that the case?
Well, so I originally actually, yes, but let's just say that I was unsuccessful at first because I was told as a musician, it's important for you. You need to develop the fan base. You need to grow on social media. So like years before, it was like you need to have a mailing list. And so once we entered the age of social media, it was like, okay, well, you need to be on the different social media platforms. Okay, and so I was 13 years on YouTube, and I only had like 100 followers, just over 100 followers. So I was missing something, but I had the opportunity to transition my thinking about content. And I don't know, should I get into that story?
Well, let's do that, because I think there's a lot of people, whether if they're managing a company's, social media, YouTube, whatever, or they're an individual, that might be a prospective client for you. They're listening. They're like, you're missing something. In my mind, I'm like, what were you missing, David? Tell us. So tell that story, David, because I think that sounds fascinating.
Okay. Well, I think that it's very easy to think that social media maybe is just a simple extension of conversation. Like I'm talking with you, if I just put it on camera and post it online, that's what social media should be. But what I found is there are over 8 billion people in the world, and 5 billion plus are online. And so like never before, we are competing for attention. And so something as simple as having a conversation with one person, when it comes online, it's not the same. You have to figure out how to get someone's attention. And the best way to do that, I've found, is by getting someone who's already successfully done it to teach you how to do it. Seems simplistic, but
modeling success. Yeah.
Modeling is the way to go. So what happened is, the beginning of the pandemic, my buddy Jeff Vargas, he's a public speaker, and he decided that he was going to start a Zoom called Dudes Chat for us guys that went to high school together. to just kind of, check up on each other. And one of our friends, Kevin, his mom had just died, and he said, "Hey,
Hmm.
David, would you sing a hymn every morning on Facebook to help me get through this difficult time?" So I said yes. And when I did it, what I realized was Kevin was going to be blessed and benefit from it, but people who never knew me before would never discover me. I'd actually have to have a budget to pay to advertise on Facebook so that new people could discover me. Oh, so I did some research. Well, how do I get to a place where people who've never met me before can discover what I'm doing? And Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, entrepreneur guru, I heard an interview with him where he said, TikTok is the best place for businesses for organic growth. TikTok? I thought that was for dancing girls. I don't dance. I'm not a girl either. So I thought, okay, is he for real? Well, I said, okay, he is successful. He has what I want. Let me humble myself, believe him. And so I got a coach, and then I laser beam focused. I made a commitment. I'm going to do whatever it takes to figure this out. I'm not worried about YouTube anymore right now. I'm not worried about Facebook. TikTok it is. Laser beam focus. I'm getting a coach. I'm going to do what the coach says and wait until I figure this out. And so my coach, one of the first things he said was, all right, find 8 or so different areas that you're passionate about and start posting. Okay. So I posted me singing. It was nice. A couple people said, oh, you have a nice voice, but not very many people. So I got 100 or 200 views on videos that I posted singing. And I tried to do a trend, but I wasn't really good at the trends. Then I said, well, let me do some of the stuff like what I was doing on Facebook for my friend Kevin. So I would pray. And actually, when I prayed, I got more responses. I said, wait a second, I'm just
Hmm.
praying. Like, why am I getting all this content? Well, apparently, within my audience, there were a lot of people who didn't have someone to pray with them. So literally, me
Really?
praying was like something that they really wanted. And what my coach said is, you're going to do these different things, and then your audience will tell you what it is that they really want.
That's fascinating, David. And to me too, just as I'm listening to you tell this story, it makes me just think about humanity. We have all this ability to connect, and I'm using air quotes for the people just listening, through social media. And yet I think a lot of them, it feels pretty shallow, feels pretty hollow, right? It doesn't have the authenticity. And I have not seen, this, you praying, but I can just see people suddenly relating to someone and feeling being given permission, right, to connect and to be with you in that moment. And I think that's kind of a really beautiful use of social media, and far from what people would normally think when you say social media, right? So you notice this trend, not trend, it's not trend. You notice the feedback, I should say, of your audience telling you this is a direction, this is, gaining traction. What
Yes.
happened next?
So interestingly enough, I I'm seeing this and I'm going, okay, so I'm going to commit to doing this on a regular basis. On TikTok, once you get to over 1,000 followers, then you can go live. So when I went live, I said, all right, let me play, as you see the keyboard behind you, let me play hymns by request. So that seems like, in alignment with what I'm doing on the prayer side. Okay, let me do hymns by request. What the algorithm is promoting at the time will
Mm-hmm.
give you further bang for your buck. In other words, so so for example, a few months ago, and it might be the case right now, but it really was the case a few months ago, TikTok was promoting long form content. So that meant if you posted something longer than a 60-second video, a longer piece of content, that you would get more love from the algorithm. So at the time when I was going live, the algorithm really wanted people to go live. So I'd find after I went live playing the piano, I'd have like 200 followers or 300 followers. I said, wow, okay, I'm going to go live every day. I'm going
Yeah.
to, it's telling me what it wants. Okay, my audience is telling me what they want. The algorithm is telling me what it wants. I'm just going to double down on what is being expressed to me. But when I sat down, the thing that I did that was my first viral video is, I took my phone, I put it on a stand, I sat down, and I just said what I would want someone to say to me as like an inspirational thought. So the first one I said, hey, wait, don't scroll. Don't quit. Don't quit. And then I shared from my heart, why it is that I felt like
Mm.
someone should not quit. What it is that I wish someone would have been telling me at that moment.
Wow.
And that particular video got over 1 million views. I realized that when you're on social media, we have to think of it in terms of what it is as a way of community building and connection, in addition to the device it can be for sales for a business. Because what happens is if you just treat it like, oh, this is like a gimmick and I'm going to manipulate
Yeah.
people and get them to do something, then you won't create the authentic connection, and then you're not going to have a tribe. So you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. Whereas I had one friend who had been on social media for many years, and she kept saying, David, I hate the way that social media is being handled now. When I started, and her preferred platform was Twitter, she said, you followed someone and they followed you, you would engage with their content, they would engage with yours. It
Yeah.
was a community with mutual respect.
Reciprocal. Yeah.
Yes. And so in my mind, I said, all right, despite, with me having goals of growing, I'm going to make sure that I take time to engage with the people who engage with me. And so I would even create content where I'd say, hey, family, I'm trying to get to know my online family. I'm just curious. What's your favorite color? I'll go first. Mine's blue. Please let me know in the comments what's your favorite color. Thanks. Something simple like that. And then people would tell you their colors. And so I try to like come up with something to like show the percentage of the different people who like the different
Yeah.
colors in
Yeah.
our online community. I do that about food that we like. What's your favorite book, or what's your favorite restaurant to eat at? I'll go first, right? And just those kinds of things added to the other content that I was creating. I started to see specific people who would show up when I post, they would show up quickly and they would say something because now they had like a real connection. And so you
Mm.
start having these, like, I'll call them super fans, but I'm their super fan too, right? You start having these super fans where, because you are actually really engaging, they show up first. And actually, it helps move, let's say that you have 5 super fans and they actually watch your full piece of content, right? So that's helpful. The algorithm's looking to see, all right, are people watching just the first few seconds or the whole thing,
Right.
right? But you have super fans who are really engaged, they're going to watch the full thing, right? So that helps you as well. So I think thinking about social media in terms of community really helped me to be successful on the long haul.
Yeah, and again, the authenticity of it is refreshing too, because we all think of these gimmicks and the clickbait and all of that stuff that kind of your friend was kind of talking about, how social media is kind of going down that way, and just speaking to your actual audience and then learning more about them, right, in that way, so that you have those connections. You're going to be able to just, I guess, get tighter with them and know them even more, right? Because when you first start, you don't know who your audience is, right? And so getting real about that. And so for us to kind of get real about some of these takeaways that you've discovered, can you share with us some of the, I guess the overarching principles that you've noticed? It sounds like, first of all, be real and get to know your audience. What else would you add to that, David, so that people can engage their social media community better?
Sure. One of the things that I've noticed, so let's say that after our conversation, I'm feeling a certain thing that we've talked about, If I go outside and set my phone up and talk about the thing that I'm feeling very strongly about, it will perform better than, content that I've made where I'm not really feeling strongly. Like literally, we know that we encourage people to make content that's entertaining, that's educating, and that's emotional as well, right? Or engaging and relatable in some way. But literally, I know that when I'm feeling strongly emotionally about a topic, it's a great time for me to make content. So, yes, it's important to be authentic. And if you're feeling very strong in an emotional way, of course, I'm meaning this in a very healthy way. I know there are people who will speak very polarizing things in an emotional way, and that can work too. I'm not recommending that, but it can work. But I'm saying if you're feeling very strongly about something that you're passionate about that relates to your audience, those kinds of posts will do well. And so it would be helpful to you if you go, this is something that really touches me. Let me just take a moment and create a quick video. You don't have to
Mhm.
post it right then, but if you get in the habit of doing that, then those you'll watch and see, and I bet you'll see a lot of those will do better than content when you weren't really emotionally engaged in a topic.
That's, I love the fact that, I mean, we're consuming this content, a lot of people on their phones, right? On whatever tablets and computer or screen, that the camera picks up, right? It's just like acting for a camera or something like that, right? Or TV or movie. Somehow that emotional, whatever piece is there, people pick up on it and it actually makes a difference, right? Like that. I think that's beautiful because the people who really speak there come from the heart are rewarded
Yes.
possibly by actual humans, maybe not the algorithm itself, but the idea that humans are relating to that. And that's beautiful because we see a lot of, I don't know, again, gimmicks, right? Of trying to get people to click and things that you kind of go, oh boy, right? Like the, my biggest pet peeve, David, this is not why I had you on here, is to gripe about, about certain things, but it are videos that you go, okay, what's going to happen here? And there's no payoff. And I feel so
Uh,
ripped off when
yeah.
like it's a short video. I didn't waste a lot of time, but that's, anyways, that's beside the point. So let's talk about, you know, what else like TikTok. Do you think TikTok is still king right now as far as being top of the pile? I guess it's specific on your use case, but
Yes.
that what Gary Vee said, is that still true today?
Okay, so what happened was, good question. What happened was because TikTok was as organic friendly as it forced Instagram to be different. It forced it to change its algorithm. So previously on Instagram, Instagram was judging, like you post something and then it would see how like five people who follow you respond, and then based upon that, it would send it out to a wider circle. Whereas on TikTok, it was picking people, a small group of people who didn't know you, and seeing how they responded.
Mm.
So because you were getting such great results on TikTok, it forced other platforms to change how they did what they did. And so I would say this: TikTok is a younger audience. Like right now there's this like big surge on TikTok because of, I think, TikTok Shop. There's a big surge going on, and I kind of, let me just not per se focus on that. Let me just say because of the way the algorithm is, TikTok got more stingy. Instagram, YouTube started shorts. They became more generous. Like it's almost like they rubbed off on each other. And so nowadays, I don't know. If you said use case scenario obviously affects things, but if you want to use a platform as part of a strategy, I'll give an example of what I did. When I would go live on TikTok, I would say, hey, I've struggled on YouTube and I would really like to get to 1,000 followers on YouTube. Would you mind following me? I'm at David Griffiths Music. And I did that for a few months, and then I got to 1,000 followers on YouTube. I know on TikTok I have a lot more kids that are watching, but and it doesn't matter, right? Getting to 1,000 and then having 4,000 watch hours is your goal to be monetized on YouTube. So I leveraged what TikTok could do for me to help me get to where I wanted to go on YouTube. So that's one way that you can take advantage of the platform. TikTok is a platform where you can post 8 to 10 different pieces of content on TikTok if you wanted to in a day. On Instagram, it doesn't work well,
Yeah.
right? And so if you look at what the platform's culture is, you can then leverage that to do what you need to get done. Does that
So
make
so there's so much to like platform, and of course you want to post. Remember when like Hootsuite and those things, like, and you can push things out to different platforms, and yet certain platforms like a certain way to be posted to, right? Like they have, so you got to know all their different little rules, the what the algorithm likes. Uh, I think a lot of people, it's intimidating to know all of that. Like what do you have to, in terms of advice to people who are maybe, I don't know, intimidated by all the changing rules and, just trying to keep up with how to be relevant and build your following on social media?
So here is okay. Ideally, I would recommend when you're starting to start with a platform, one platform. Learn the culture of that platform. Once you've gotten the hang of it, then go to another platform, do your research to see how things are different, and then look to adapt what you were doing over here to this other platform. So, for example, right now, I may say pray in the morning and that go to all my platforms. I'm not really trying to grow, like, I'm not in an aggressive growth strategy, say, for TikTok, because I know on TikTok, I'd be much better served in the topic of prayer to pray for a specific thing. On TikTok, the platform, if you pray for single mothers or you pray for someone who's dealing with depression, those posts do better than if you have a prayer in the morning. All right. So there are certain things that will transfer well over different platforms, but I would recommend start with one platform
Hmm.
first and master the culture there.
Okay. That's, yeah. Now I'm curious, and you're talking about building an audience, building a community. Doesn't necessarily mean that you are monetizing that.
True.
But how do you mix, or how do you suggest this combination of when you're promoting yourself and the other types of content that are perhaps more for growth oriented, serving your audience, more, giving back, right? Like they're
Yeah.
ideally you need an ask in there somewhere. And I think maybe Gary Vee at one point talked about give, ask, right? Like that idea. Is
Yeah.
that what you suggest, or how do you, for yourself, balance things out in terms of the trade-off?
That is so important, and thank you for that question. So, the cadence, I have a couple people, I'll share with you what my cadence is, but I have studied under a couple different people, and so depending on what someone's doing, I will coach them one way. So, let's say that you were preparing for a Black Friday sale. Let's say that this is 2 months for before Black Friday, and you're just starting out. Then I'd say, all right, as you're creating content, don't have a strong call to action. Just give value, give information that's valuable to your audience day in, day out. Soft call to action is, hey, for more information like this, if you enjoyed this, follow for more. So that's a soft call to action that's not bothering anyone. They're like, oh, okay, yeah. Oh, I enjoyed this. Yeah, sure. Let me follow for more. Then as you get closer to the launch, let people know, hey, I'm going to be having a launch for Black Friday. Be on the lookout for a special offer you won't want to miss. Then as you actually get to the event of Black Friday, then go hard all week long, hit your promotion really hard on everything that you're putting out. Your audience will go, "Oh, that's right. this is Black Friday and he said he had a promotion, and they'll be fine with it. When you're done with Black Friday, after Cyber Monday, go back to giving value and not pushing hard something and just getting people to follow you. All right, so that's if you're getting ready to do a launch, that's a good like 3 month strategy. However, I noticed there were some other people that I follow, and what they would do is they would do a what you just mentioned that Gary Vee said. So maybe they would do a string of 4 pieces of content without a strong call to action, and then the fifth one would be very strong. So let's talk about the platform of Instagram. On Instagram, we have reels that we know are getting these short form videos are getting a lot of love from the algorithm. But where a lot of sales occur is in your stories. So in your stories, normally in the stories, you would share some behind the scenes, cool stuff that's happening. So what I recommend for my students to do, and what I've seen done well is there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. You're sharing little pictures or video snippets, and then every like 5, 6, 7, depending on how much stuff that you put out. So some people, they'll have 20 stories going on, and stories only last for 24 hours. But if you have 20 stories, then like 2 or 3 places within there, like every 6, 7, you can have an advertisement that's a strong call to action. But what happens is if you didn't hear this conversation and every day you were doing a strong call to action, your audience would get turned off by that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea is we want to give value. We want to make sure that they understand, like, I'm going to be giving you much more value than I'm going to be asking you for anything. And when we establish that, they're comfortable. And even if there's going to be a season where you're going to be pushing real hard, if you let people know about it and prior to that, you're not pushing hard, they will be fine for a week or 10 days of you pushing hard on a launch.
Because it makes sense, right? It's kind of like I think people get it, right? Black Friday. There's so much else going on with Black Friday promotions. You kind of it's a little softens it up a little bit too, right? You know, it's a thing. Let's talk a little bit about technical side of content creation, David. And I mean, when you think about cameras, you think about editing, you think about all those things. They've all gotten a lot easier over the years, right? My goodness, when you think about we were trying to do this 20 years ago, no one could crank out the content like people do because it just wouldn't have been feasible. What do people really need these days? Like what do you think is like recommended gear/process if you want to put out content and engage an audience? That's it. Okay.
So,
For the people just listening, David just held up his phone and just like waved it in front of the camera.
so so that I'm not being a hypocrite, let me just say, during the pandemic season, I got several uh, mirrorless cameras, professional mirrorless cameras.
DSLRs, right? Like that kind
Yeah.
of, yeah.
Yes, right. So I was about to say DSLR, but then we shifted from the mirror to the mirrorless, right? So
Yeah.
right. So I had, or I still have several that I use, but if I'm getting ready to do a video sales letter for a landing page, I'll use my professional camera. If I'm creating content in a general sense, I'll just use my phone,
Yeah.
and it's so convenient. I mean, it does, like, if I were getting ready to do a series of reels involved in promoting something, I would use my professional camera. But in a general sense, on a daily basis, just use your phone. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
It is great. And don't allow the tech part to slow you down. Because here's what I did, and I'm sure people in your audience would be tempted to do this. Oh, well, I only have a camera. All right, well, I'm gonna wait until I can save up and I can get a nice
Right.
mirrorless camera. So I get the mirrorless camera, and then I go, oh man, I want to get this really nice light modifier so that I can get that really professional look. And then you get that, and then you're looking at everything, and you're like, oh wow, I need to shoot in S log and get someone to color grade my stuff for me. I need to wait till I can afford to have someone who can, who can edit my stuff for me. And before you know it, you've created this list of 6, 7, 8 things that are
Yeah.
slowing you down. When in fact, if you would just use your phone and not worry about that other stuff, you'd actually create the momentum that would allow you even to have the revenue to afford to have a team to support you or to get the nicer equipment.
Right. Right. Done is better than perfect. Right.
Yes,
Like just
absolutely.
get going, get on it, and I think there's, like you said, when you use your phone, hey, your arm's bouncing around, you're doing the selfie mode video, whatever, like there's a realness to it. And we go back to authenticity that people know that you're shooting it yourself, you're getting it out, but they caught you, or it's like we caught you in a moment where you wanted to share an idea, right? And it feels fresh and top of mind, and kind of goes to that thing where you say when you're really feeling something, right? So all of that can definitely play in your favor, I think, as far as that authentic look, without making excuses, putting things off, like you were saying, right? I got to get, like, I'm looking around as you're saying that, I'm looking around my studio going, oh yeah, I bought that. I don't really use that anymore over there. And, like I bought this, David, I bought this slider, this battery powered slider. So you get that
Ah,
parallax view. So I could like
yeah,
switch cameras on a virtual keynote.
yeah,
And I would be kind of like, you'd be seeing the background move behind me. And it was like, oh, that's going to look cool. But like, ended up being a lot more technically, frustrating, because I got to make sure that's working, and, just
yeah.
focus on what you want to say. And that's important. What are is there, before we go and wrap things up, is there something that you see out there that bugs the crap out of you for like people doing? You're like, oh, I wish they just stop doing that and start doing this. What would you kind of, as a tip, put out there to the world? Just one thing though, David. I know there's probably a bunch, but if there's,
I, I would just encourage people that your authentic truth is going to be much better than someone's, canned B-roll with like I just see too much of that where someone, especially a business owner, is told they need to have social media. So there's nothing authentic on their page. It's just all, you know, canned stuff, to say it nicely. And the problem is, when I look at it, I just gloss over it like, oh, okay,
yeah,
that's not real. And so they're thinking they're doing a good thing, but in fact, they would be much better served if there was something authentic that they were sharing instead of something that looks like, you know, it's like an ad campaign from 40 years ago. you know, it's
is
just,
it, so it's over curated in a lot of
yeah,
ways? And I mean,
absolutely.
and so sometimes this vulnerability or the warts and all piece, it's like people eliminate, delete all their bad reviews or something, right? Like we want something that's real, right? Like that's kind of what people, hey, we need, yeah, we need that right now. Yeah, that's sits right with me. That's very cool. Hey, David, thank you so much for spending some time with us and sharing your journey, your you know, best practices in a way of how you're helping companies. How, if people were listening to this and said, hey, I want to get more of this guy, how do people reach out? How do people find you and your academy?
Well, you can send me a message at David at Content Creating Academy. Our website is contentcreatingacademy.com. If you're on Instagram, you can look for me at David the Digital Creator. And if you are on TikTok, David Griffiths 07. But feel free to send me an email and let me know what it is that you're interested in, and I will be happy to support you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, again, thank you for your time and sharing your expertise, David. I appreciate you being here.
My pleasure.
And to all of our listeners, thank you once again for tuning in. And until next time, you know what to do. Stay engaged. Thank you so much for listening to Engaging Personalities. If you believe this world needs more engagement and you're an industry leader or you have an interesting take on rehumanizing business, go to go.engagify.ai/podcast-guest to apply and come on the show. If you got something out of this interview, Do you mind sharing it on your social media? Just grab a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show. Include the hashtag engaging personalities. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episode, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, engagify.ai, or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and stay engaged.